Good morning, everyone. My name is Paul, and I am a nerd, and you are here to learn about my favorite thing to talk about, which could either be a good thing or a bad thing for you. More on that later. How to use PracticeMaster to manage your marketing efforts. One of my favorite things to talk about. But first, let's get this out of the way. This is your GoToWebinar control panel. If you are still seeing this on your screen, it's because you have not pressed this button that looks like an arrow pointing to the right, because had you pressed that button, this would have flown off the right-hand side of your screen and disappeared, leaving only these buttons here, and this button would have changed into one that points to the left, because pressing it again will cause this to fly back onto your screen. But why would you want to do that? Because you have a question and you're shy. So if you have a question, you can type it here. Oops. Don't click the screen, Paul. This is really just a PowerPoint. You can type your question here. You can hit send, and Leanne, our humble and muted moderator, will unmute herself, interrupt me at just the right time, ask your question on your behalf, and I'll answer it. But maybe I won't. Maybe I'll get off track. Maybe I won't have understood what you were asking. Maybe you'll think of a follow-up question. Just keep typing them here and keep remembering to hit send, and Leanne will keep me on track. Now, if you want to surprise us and do something exciting, you can press this button here that looks like a hand with an arrow pointed upwards in front of it. That means raise your hand. Maybe once or twice a year somebody does this, at least knowing that they're doing it. Occasionally people do it, and then they don't answer us when we unmute them and let them ask their own question. So if you'd like to, you can ask your own question and talk directly to me by raising your hand. Leanne will interrupt me. She'll unmute you, and that line of communication will remain open until I'm done answering your question. So rather than typing your follow-up questions, you can just have a two-way conversation with me, and we can make sure we get your question fully answered. So now, without any further ado, I'm going to press a couple buttons, and I am going to go to the contact screen in PracticeMaster. Now, contacts is the basis for everything I'm going to talk about. So we're going to stay on this Paul Purdue record, and we're going to talk about marketing, okay? Now, why PracticeMaster? Well, several reasons. First off, PracticeMaster is tied into your tabs billing system if you have tabs. PracticeMaster should be tied in, if you have it and you're using it for contacts, to your Outlooks and through Outlook to your individual smartphones. PracticeMaster should be, because of those two tie-ins, to Outlook and smartphones and to tabs. Because of its ability to integrate with those things, it should become your central management point for all firm contacts, and sometimes for non-firm related contacts. But bottom line, every contact that your firm is related to or is engaged with or is acting on behalf of as an attorney, therefore your clients, everybody should be in here in the contact file. And therefore, when somebody's address changes, it feeds through to tabs so that the bills go to the right person. And it feeds through to Outlook and therefore through to smartphones so that the people that are interested in having that particular contact's information on their phone will have it updated instantly. I don't know if you heard that. I snapped my fingers. That's the instantly sound. And what that means is that PracticeMaster becomes the perfect place to manage your contacts. Marketing aside, it becomes the perfect place to manage your contacts. Now, so several additional reasons for that are that you can modify the file structure. So if you need to keep track of Social Security number, you can do so. If you don't, you can take that field out. If you were tracking other attorneys that have admission dates and bar numbers, you can add those fields to track that so they can show up in documents or just be available to you knowing that this person who's opposing counsel has this bar number and it needs to be put on a document. So the file structure being customizable makes PracticeMaster a great place to put your contacts and manage them, because you can structure the contact record in such a way that it stores information that you are very interested in. If you need to track information on expert witnesses, if you need to track information on vendors and therefore keep track of W-9s, you can add these fields to your contact file. And it is that very reason, that flexibility, that also makes it the perfect place to manage your marketing. Now, I've got a separate screen here called Mailing List Info. And this is where we keep track of the things that need to be done marketing-wise for Paul Purdue. So back here, we've got Paul Purdue's contact info, and we have added, in this example, this marketing or mailing list info tab that keeps track of stuff for Paul Purdue. Now, stick with me here, because since we've already got Paul Purdue here, and since we've already got Paul Purdue tied to our billing or not, maybe he's not a client, maybe he's another attorney in town, maybe he's a judge, maybe he's an insurance adjuster, or an executive in a corporation that we would love to do business with, or any number of things. Because we've got Paul Purdue here, he's linked to tabs if necessary. He's linked to our contact information, our Outlook for push through to smartphones, and we can market to them. So if you're using PracticeMaster to manage your contacts, and you've got all your contacts in your system, and you have set it up to store the information you need contact-wise, why not have that be the central place for marketing? Because here's the alternative, and I know that if you are thinking about doing this, that you're already doing what I'm going to describe. If you send out a Christmas card, I bet you've got a spreadsheet with the Christmas card list. And if you send out maybe a newsletter every, maybe twice a year, maybe once a year, maybe every quarter, I don't care, you've probably got a newsletter list. And if you've got a newsletter for environmental law and you've got another one for real estate law, then you've probably got two spreadsheets, one for the environmental newsletter list and one for the real estate newsletter list, plus you've got that one for your holiday cards, your Christmas cards. Then, if you have 17 attorneys, every time you go to invite people to the Christmas party, or send out the Christmas card, or send out the environmental law newsletter, you've got to ask those attorneys, hey, is there anybody new? And so all of a sudden you get 17 spreadsheets, one from each attorney or from their legal assistant, saying, well, here are all the people that are in Bob's contacts in Outlook. Let's merge them with the newsletter list, or let's pare it down and then merge them in. So you've got these different places to put all these things, and what you end up with is Paul Purdue, the contact, showing up on the Christmas holiday party list with the correct address because he moved last month, but showing up on the newsletter list because he's interested in environmental law with the wrong address. Okay? So these are problems that you're facing now, and if you bring everything into PracticeMaster and you make PracticeMaster the focal point, the center point for all contact information, then A, you've only got one record for Paul Purdue, and it feeds everything, including all of a sudden your list of who's going to be invited to the holiday party, and your list of who's going to be invited to or who's going to receive the Thanksgiving card or the holiday card, and who's going to get the newsletter on environmental law. You've got one record then for Paul Purdue. It can change whenever need be. That change will feed the billing software if he's a client. That change will feed the Outlook and therefore the smartphones if his contact information appears on certain people's phones. Let's say Paul Purdue retires and moves to Florida, but he's still a potential client, or he still is a client because, let's say, the firm does estate planning. And if he's retired and moved to Florida, then he probably has more estate planning needs now that he's in that position. We definitely want to know his new home phone number. We definitely want to know where he lives. We still want to send him the holiday card. We still want to send him the estate planning information, the newsletter. But we change it once, and now the billing record in tabs changes. The fact that he's on Bob's and Susan's phones, it changes instantly. And when we go to send him those things, it's changed there too. No longer do we have a list of people that we bill, and a list of people that are in Bob's contacts, and a list of people that are in Susan's contacts, and then a list of people that we send the holiday card to, and a list of people that we invite to the holiday party, and a list of people that we send the environmental or the estate planning newsletter in this example. It's one record that feeds all those things instead of multiple locations that need to be updated all at once if we're going to maintain accurate information across the board. It changes from many points of update to one point of update that feeds everything, and that's crucial. Now, that's the why, okay? We've talked about the fact that contacts should be a central part of what you're doing with PracticeMaster. If they're not, and you're using PracticeMaster, it's something to consider. Hey, we don't all jump into PracticeMaster doing everything we want to do, and if you're using PracticeMaster and not using it to manage your contacts, well, then maybe this is the time to do that. We've already talked about why that makes sense for contact management, and therefore why that makes sense for marketing management. The two kind of go hand in hand. Now let's talk about how. How do we make PracticeMaster work for marketing? Now keep in mind, we can help you with all this to whatever degree is necessary. We can guide you along the right way as you do it yourself. We can simply jump on and do it, or you can just watch this coffee pot webinar and go it alone. So whatever level of help you want from us, I guess you're already getting the first part of it by learning how to do it. But you don't have to do all this yourself. And since we've developed this for many clients, we can do it for you very quickly. A couple of things you want to keep track of. With Paul Purdue's record, and I've got some bogus data in here. Obviously, this isn't really his business address, and that wasn't really his home address, and this isn't really his other address. But you've got the ability in PracticeMaster to have 3 addresses. So if Paul Purdue lives in Dundee, Michigan, and he works in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and he has an other address in Florida where he spends half his time because, as we said, he's retired, then these addresses are going to be filled in. And perhaps business is the default address, perhaps home is. Whatever it is, if he's an estate planning client, perhaps it's home, that's where the bills are going to go. And that's where when you do something in PracticeMaster, you're going to see that's where he likes to be addressed, where we send him letters, where we send his bills, as I mentioned. That's his default address. But the problem with doing marketing is that the different things that we do marketing-wise, and in this example, I have a couple things. I have an estate planning newsletter that we send out. I have a woman-in-law conference that we give every year. I have a regular newsletter on one of these topics. I have a Thanksgiving card, a party, an announcement for when we get new lawyers or somebody's a super lawyer or we move or whatever the case may be. So the problem is that for each of these different touches, I'll call them, each of these ways that we market to this person or could market to this person, he may have different needs. Stick with me. So the announcement, if I check this box, I have the ability to specify an address override. I can say, well, I know that we normally send things to his home, but for the announcements, we're going to send them to Paul at his business. And instead of sending it to Mr. Paul Purdue, we're going to send it to Paul Purdue and staff, because that's how we want the announcement marketing touch to be addressed to Paul Purdue. We want it to go to his business address, and we want it to go to his staff. Now, let's say we also invite him to the party. And when we do that, we send that to his home. But we invite his lovely wife, Barbara, who prefers to be called Barb, and in fact would shriek at the thought of being called Barbara. And so we want to address him that way. Oops, I'm not typing. I got off track there. See where I'm going with this? The different things that we do. The Thanksgiving card, it needs to go to his Florida address, because that's where he is during those 2 months, November and December. He's in Florida. And who do we send that to? Well, we let Paul be first this time. And we're not even going to put the last name in, okay? The point is, you address people differently, and you send things to different addresses based on the marketing efforts that you do. Now, if you're looking at this and you're saying, well, we don't have a party, or we don't do an estate planning newsletter, or we don't have anything to do with entertainment law or business litigation, these are the things that you set up using the flexible file structure that's available to you in PracticeMaster. You take your what I like to call tangibles and your intangibles, what we sometimes call areas of interest, and you define them and you put them on the screen, usually under some sort of a tab like marketing or mailing list info, which you see up here if we scroll back to the top of the list. And then you just be careful to define the fact that you have what we call address overrides and name overrides for each of your tangibles. Tangibles are things that you send or do. If we send a newsletter, that's a tangible. If we invite people to a party, that invitation is a tangible. It's a thing that gets, even if it's an email, it's a thing that exists and is sent out. It's tangible. If we have a Thanksgiving card that we send out, that's a tangible thing. Okay. If we have an estate planning letter, an EP letter, then that's especially if it's printed, that's a tangible thing. These things are tied to the newsletter, meaning if somebody's interested in asbestos defense and construction law, then we would check these two things, and we would indicate that they get our newsletter at a business address, perhaps, and it's just Paul Purdue. So these are the intangibles. You define them based on your firm. These are the tangibles. You define them based on your firm. But the concept to remember here is the address override and the name override. Very, very important. Without it, your whole marketing effort really kind of falls flat, because what you need to be able to do is address these issues the very instant you decide Paul and Barb should be coming to the holiday party, by saying, yes, invite them, yes, send it to the home address, yes, address them as Barb and Paul Purdue in this instance. Now, there's a lot of stuff underneath that makes this happen. There is a report, a very complex report that we've put in place for countless clients that looks at, it's time to print the holiday party invite list. Okay, let's look at each person that's been checked to be invited. Let's make sure to use the right address. Let's make sure to address them the right way. Now, another concept that's very important is identifying who cares about marketing to these people. Now, I'm going to back up real quick, and I'm going to go here, and I'm going to identify that we have this field. It actually comes out of the box with PracticeMaster being called group info, and we normally change that to something like phone sync, because that's what it means to people. Putting your name in here, or your initials, and my initials in this demo system are ACS for Attorney Computer Systems, your username going in this field means, hey, I care about this guy enough to want his or her contact information on my phone. And so by putting your username in here, that means that almost immediately after saving this record with your username, your username, which in my example is initials, saving this record with that username in there means that almost immediately that contact record will show up on your phone, just like that. That's different than being interested in marketing to Paul, okay? Now, I may hate Paul Purdue. I may think he's a real jerk, okay? And so I have absolutely no desire to have his contact information on my phone, okay? So I'm going to take me out of here. I don't care. I don't want him on my phone. I really don't. And I save that record. Yet, and what you're seeing here with this flashing is some workflows that run to make sure that after we select people for marketing touches, that the information is filled in correctly. But I care about marketing to him. He may be a jerk, but he's an important jerk, okay? And so I don't want his name and phone number and address on my phone, my cell phone, my smartphone, but I care about marketing to him. So I am one of the people that's responsible for caring about marketing to him. And so we need the ability to identify separately who cares about marketing to this person. And we need the ability, however it's done, and we've since changed our way of doing this to be a single line with maybe slashes between usernames. But regardless, I need the ability to define who cares about marketing to this person on a multiple attorney level. In other words, Paul cares about marketing to Paul Purdue, but so does Bob, and so does Joe. All three of them happen to, be interested in marketing to Paul Purdue. So The reason for that need to identify all the people that care about marketing to him is that later on, Paul Purdue, well, I'm confusing things because I am both the attorney and the person who's marketing, but Bob may decide I don't care about marketing to him anymore. In fact, I just as soon he not come to the holiday party. He gets drunk and he acts obnoxious. So Bob may say, take me off, I don't care about marketing to him, but Phil and Robert still do care about marketing to him. So you need the ability to know all the people that care about marketing Paul Purdue. The other reason you need the ability to care about all the people that want to market to Paul Purdue is that at a certain point in time, whoever does this marketing, whoever handles these marketing efforts, maybe a couple months before the holiday party invitations go out, that person's going to need to print a list for each of the people in the firm that care about marketing, showing them who they care about inviting to the holiday party. And so Paul needs to show up on Bob's list and on Phil's list and on Robert's list. And all three of those people need to look at this list of who they care about inviting to the party and saying, yep, and I think that's the right address for him. Yep, we still want to invite him, and yep, that's still the right address. So there are a lot of things that come together here. Who cares about marketing to this person? What are this person's intangible interests? And what tangible marketing efforts do we want to direct toward this person? Now, we haven't really talked quite so much about the intangibles. The intangibles are areas of interest, things that our firm does that people may be interested in, that we may be interested in telling people about. That's the important distinction. And it's not like we have a tangible thing that has to do with asbestos defense, but by marketing people with these intangible areas of interest to identify what they care about on a marketing level or on just an area of practice level, means that when something significant happens relating to asbestos defense, we can very quickly pull together a list of the people that care about that and tell them something. So the intangibles don't really have every 3 months we send out a marketing touch, a newsletter, for instance, about asbestos defense. They don't have that sort of thing going for them. They are not tangible marketing touches. They are intangible. But by identifying these areas of interest, we have the ability on a dime to say, who are the people that care about entertainment law? Something big happened and we need to let them know. So we've got these intangibles, they're an important aspect. We've got these tangibles, they're an important aspect. We've got the fact that we need to identify who cares about marketing to this person. That's an important aspect. And the last that's very important to me, to most of my clients, is never mail. If somebody says, I don't want to get this stuff from you, I don't want to be marketed to, or more importantly, if they say, if they sue the firm for malpractice, or they have some bad experience, or you have some bad experience with them, you want to be able to identify the fact that you never want to contact them marketing-wise again. Why? Why don't we just take them off all these things? Because by taking them off all these things and not identifying separately that they are never to be marketed to again, then somebody could come, some new lawyer could join the firm 2 years from now and say, oh, Paul Purdue, I think we should invite him to the holiday party. But this never mail gives us the ability to say, no, we're not going to do that. Okay? So these things all come together. Now, will your firm use all these things? Well, certainly not these areas of practice or areas of interest. Certainly not these tangibles. You may not organize it the same way. You may come up with something different. There may be something additional that's a new challenge for us to face marketing-wise. For instance, I have a firm in Cleveland that brought event-based marketing into the forefront as far as we're concerned, and we wrote some infrastructure for them. I can't show it to you now because I don't have a sample of it, but I can describe it. They have season tickets to the Cleveland Cavaliers. They have a set of season tickets to one of the Playhouse Square theater series in the Playhouse Square area of Cleveland, and they have a golf membership. So unlike a party that happens at a certain time that people get invited to, or a newsletter that goes out with a certain regular or perhaps irregular schedule, or Thanksgiving cards or holiday cards or whatever it is, this is more a matter of who have we invited to go to a Cavs game and how recently have we invited them. So these are just fields that allow us to identify who has interest in going to a Cavs game. I would not be on that list if this firm were going to invite me to a Cavs game. They probably wouldn't, because I'm not a sports person. I'm terrible at golf, but I wouldn't mind going to see a play. So if they wanted to market to me, which they don't, I'm a vendor of theirs, but that's beside the point. If they wanted to market to me, they would probably, of course, have to figure out which things I was interested in, and then they would probably check that box for Playhouse Square tickets. And so that the fact that the date next to Playhouse Square tickets doesn't have anything in it would mean that someday I might come up on a list, and they might actually decide to invite me and give me tickets to see a play. And when they did, they'd fill in that date as the last time they invited me. And what that means is that the next time a list gets printed of people who might potentially want to go to see a play on their Playhouse Square ticket series, I'd be probably at the bottom of the list because I've been invited recently. So that's an example of how we can market outside the bounds of what we originally developed. You might have something totally different. You might come up with some totally different way of marketing, or something that we haven't thought of infrastructure for yet, but we can still do that. That's part of the beauty of PracticeMaster, to do this. Not only have we used it to develop these ways of doing things, these very well thought out, very hard earned best practices, but it also gives us the leeway and the flexibility to handle just about anything that somebody can throw at us. So that is it. That is my 27 minutes on how to market using PracticeMaster. Of course, we hope that you have questions, and we hope we can help you answer them. But before we leave, let me just show you, get out of here and go to Google Chrome and take you to Attorney Computer Systems, which is already up, but I'll go ahead and go there again. It is attorneycomputersystems.com. I want you to know that we have these webinars on all sorts of interesting PracticeMaster and tabs and World Docs issues, and they're called our Coffee Pot webinars. So if you go to our website and click on videos and then Coffee Pot webinars, you will be able to see what the next one is, which is what's coming in version 18 of Tabs in PracticeMaster. You'll be able to register for it using one of the two links. You'll be able to see a description. You'll be able to see recorded versions of all the past events. Not this one, though, because it's where we are right now, and it's currently in post-production. But as you scroll down, you'll see YouTube videos of every single Coffee Pot webinar we've ever done. And Coffee Pot webinars are not the only things that we do. We have our water cooler virtual user group meetings, which cover which cover Tabs 3, PracticeMaster, and World Docs. We have our eBytes video series that Mary Jo records on a monthly basis, one for Tabs, one for World Docs, one for PracticeMaster. And we have our long format Paul and Mary Jo show, which actually sometimes go anywhere from 15 to 25 minutes, where we take a single topic in one of those programs and expand upon them in great detail. And finally, if you're looking for something specific, like maybe email statements, you can simply type that, and you'll get a pop-up of suggestions. And if you hit enter, you'll get a list of all the videos that deal with that specific topic. Now, I have been informed by our alert moderator, Leanne, that we have a question. What do we got, Leanne?
Well, there's two, and I'll give the one that's not a question first, from Bill.
Okay.
Regarding, he noticed that you have a birthday coming up in November, and he wanted to make sure to wish you a happy birthday.
Well, that's another thing. That's true. That's one of those things that a client said, well, we want to send birthday cards. And I'm not in the right place. Hold on. And so we said, okay. And so we added birthday right here. And so this particular client and several others now have the ability to print birthday lists, monthly, weekly, whatever. Some attorneys send emails. Some attend live webinars and wish that person a happy birthday live. So that's just another example of how we can market using PracticeMaster. Thank you, Bill.
And the other question was regarding the list. So this is simply a list that we can print on a monthly basis or quarterly or whatever to see who we all have listed? Is that the...
Well, yes. Really, the list is a report that gets run and it's a very complex report that decides based on what you're looking for, the holiday party, the Thanksgiving cards, the newsletter. It looks at exactly where and the default address is and how that person should be addressed for that particular list. And it's not like you run it sporadically. It's more like you say, oh, we've got a newsletter going out next month. Let's make sure we've got all the right people on it. You print the list, you review it, and then you print, after you've made corrections, you reprint the same list and you send it to MailChimp or Constant Contact. If you're sending an email, you send it to a mail house. If you're working with a mail house that's sending something out in the mail, you send it to, you use it as a WordPerfect or a Word merge file to create labels if you're doing that in-house. But this list is really the actual mailing list, and it comes out as an Excel spreadsheet that you can then work with to merge with labels or merge with envelopes or upload to Constant Contact if you're sending emails, or if you're sending poinsettias, you would send it to whatever delivery company is delivering poinsettias at Christmas. Or if you're sending tins of popcorn, you would send it to your mail house that is delivering or mailing out the tins of popcorn. So that's what the list is used for. It could be printed sporadically on a monthly or quarterly basis, but it really is more event-driven. Hey, it's time to send out the holiday card. Let's get that list ready. And it has two purposes, review and execution. Review meaning, hey, let's print the list, and we'll get a different one for each attorney because we've identified who's interested in marketing to Paul Purdue. That's an important part of that list, is that when we print the list and then further break it down by attorney, Paul Purdue, in my example, would show up on Bob's and Doug's and Phil's list as somebody that's coming to the holiday party because they're interested in coming to the holiday party. Is there any other questions, Leanne? Any follow-up?
No, that's exactly right. No more questions.
Okay, awesome. Well, everybody have a good rest of the day, and we will see you next month when we're talking about version 18 in tabs in PracticeMaster. Bye-bye.